Good evening, everyone. Thank you again so much for tuning in. This is the Real Deal Fam Network. I am Andre, and this is my gorgeous wife, Essie.
How you doing? The kids lost my sign, my girl boss sign, and we're still the boss. We always share the boss. He's the head of the house, and that's just how it is.
That's it. Everybody can relate. Thank y'all again so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. If you hadn't had the opportunity yet, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
Subscribe!
We are always putting out great videos, very, very interesting, and I'm sure you will enjoy them as you will this one we're about to show you now.
Yeah, very informative.
Very, very. Thank you again. With that being said, we're going to jump in. Today we're going to discuss a topic in terms of whether you think it would work for you or work for the country, which is universal basic income, which is most people refer to the acronym UBI. And that basically what it is where the government pays everybody a certain amount of money basically to cover your general and your basic need.
This ad began running in June 2020, and it says, stand with President Trump and take the official socialism poll. Socialism, if you didn't know what that means.
And the reason why it's becoming popular right now, of course, everybody know that we starting to experience a little bit of financial hardship around the country.
And just give it to you in layman's terms. You buff it up.
Yeah. I'm trying to keep the folk together.
I got to drop it like it's hot.
Yeah, but right now the country feeling like it's kind of in a bad situation. Like my wife say, we call it broke. But
broke as a joke.
With that being said, there's a lot of people have lost employment. There's millions of people without work right now. A lot of people on furlough, and income is not the same.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of places that, let's say, there have overwhelming number of doctors and nurses they brought in that are not having a rise in the virus or patients. The nurses and doctors are basically kind of being furloughed. They're only brought in for a few hours. Maybe they might be paid the same or whatnot, but they're only working a small amount of hours in most locations. So
this is true, and everybody's feeling the pinch. Just like my wife said, whether you're a professional, whether you have an entry-level job, it doesn't matter. This thing is not picking out a specific group or educational level. It's impacting pretty much everybody. Mm-hmm. And what's been posed a lot through some of the different politicians and some of the different groups out there is the idea of universal basic income.
Yeah, so that just helps sustain everybody across the board. It's basically like you getting your stimulus check more regularly.
Right. To me, it equates to basically the entire country being on some form of welfare. I guess you can equate it to, basically.
That just came to you. Welfare. We're on welfare.
Well, basically, it's the core of the idea is basically to give you enough money the way everybody don't have to worry about having enough money to cover their basic needs in terms of maybe food or housing or something like that.
So essentially you wiped out the middle class, which basically that's the work class. That's the ones that own all the small businesses. And they're either poor or working poor. So everybody's going to be poor or super rich. There's not going to be an in-between. That's why they're coming out with this plan. They pay you a minimum amount.
Right. So if I was to ask you the question, how do you feel about the particular program?
Getting a minimal amount. Who wants to feel? Now, if I was destitute already, that's a good program for me because I'll be making getting bumped up to what other people are making. But if I'm already got my little business together and I'm trying to do things for myself and my family, and now I got dropped down, just like a Monopoly. I passed go. I got stuck at. I couldn't pass go. I lost all my properties. I lost everything. Now I'm back with nothing. I had to start all over again. Basically, that's what you got.
Right, and anybody would tell you, based on the concept of the American society, it's a capitalistic system, which means every man.
It's supposed to be capitalistic.
Right.
It
that's
was
why
a long time ago.
That's why I say concept. concept. And so basically what that means, you pretty much have the right to determine how much you can make. You're not really capped. If you're great in business, you're great in things of that nature, you can make as much money as you want.
So we're going to just bust it on out with all the things that are on the news. We're going to talk about them right here. So that works for basically the white man. Okay, that system doesn't work for everybody else. Even if you're a white woman, you got to jump through hoops. A lot of white women don't own a bunch of businesses. A lot of minorities don't own a bunch of businesses. So that system was set up for the white man. It worked great for him. For everybody else, it was a struggle. You had to get permits. You had to get all these things.
Right.
And so a lot of those things was denied to you. So, but still, many people persevered and was able to at least make,
still become successful.
Yeah, still become successful. So now,
relatively.
Yeah. So now a lot of people are just getting dropped down to bloop.
Right. Yeah, like my wife said, that's a whole nother aspect of it. In terms of the fairness of capitalism. That's why some people ascribe to the notion that that particular system won't work, because it leaves a lot of different avenues in there for people who may not practice things fairness. They don't put fairness and equality the same in terms of, if you have a company, you make a great product, or you give a great service, and people choose to come and spend with you, as opposed to you annihilating someone else's business so you have a monopoly.
Right, and you see that happening all the time with government and regulations.
Right.
Come out with a good product, they don't want it out there like that. They just throw a bunch of regulations on you and make it hard to conduct business.
Right.
But the system where they pay you just to sit home, socialism, if you have a capitalistic mind,
entrepreneur,
and you still can get by with that system, if, like we said in our last video, you team up with your family and friends, therefore your household has a larger income, and therefore you can start operating outside of just your meager means. And you guys can start buying property, or buy, whatever it is, you moving in groups of, yeah.
With me, I believe even if something like that was done, I think the cream will still rise to the top. Because if somebody gives one individual the same amount of money and they give it to somebody else, what they decide to spend their money on is going to determine how far they go. Because somebody might take that same little bit of money that they're getting subsidized with and turn that into something else, while another person, as soon as it hits their hand, they're going to spend it on something frivolous.
And that's the same thing, trying to even out the playing fields. Like we say, everybody doesn't have the mindset to be an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
And everybody doesn't have the mindset to be just be an employee. So it's checks and balances. But you don't want to just deflate the entire economy, because that affects everybody. If you take all the small businesses away from everybody, then everybody's broke. And now we're not just talking about broke, we're talking about destitute.
Right. We're talking depression levels here, is what they're anticipating around the corner. So,
and what always happens during the Great Depressions, or massive depressions, great migrations always happen.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that in another video.
But that's always out of necessity. If the resources are not there to support you in terms of food, finances, shelter, then you have to move elsewhere to find those things. And that's just life in itself.
In every society, even with the animals, if they can't find food and forage, they go off somewhere else looking for it. And so,
But that's the whole concept. That's why the government is kind of proposing these type things. I personally don't. I feel like the whole situation has probably kind of been induced or let happen till it gets to this point where the government will even need to do that. Because if you look back probably 20 years, 30 years ago, to even propose something like this, they probably would have ran you out the country.
There's a lot of theories out there about the great matrix, as it would be, and being able to think outside the matrix. And for a fact that a lot of the elite companies and people with most money have been buying and making all the businesses conglomerates, meaning all the cable and telephone companies have gotten and merged together. And all the, railroad steel have gotten together. It's just basically like the 20s, with Rockefeller and the same thing. So the same thing is repeating over and again. And then you had the Industrial Revolution. And then you had, a lot of major things happen. We'll talk about that in another video. But also Great Migrations happened. It's like a new fold. New things happen in the country and the world. So.
Right. And regardless of what caused the situation, the results are going to be the same. Right now, with everything being on lockdown, people are not able to move about as they need to. That caused business to basically not have customers. People are not shopping. People are not moving around. The economy has slowed down.
Yeah,
It's
even
become
if you
sluggish.
get your money, unless you got straight bills to pay, you I need to hold on to this little dollar I got. I might have to buy food. So the grocery stores are making bank.
Right. And so people, by them not working, that affects the company. The companies still have overhead. They still have bills. Some businesses were attempting to at least pay their employees a portion of their income while they weren't working. But now it doesn't get to a point where a lot of companies are going bankrupt, like we said in the previous video.
Yeah, 50% of the businesses haven't been paying their
and so during
rent.
a time like now, if the country's proposing this UBI, that
Tell me
means
again,
UBI is universal basic income. And what's going to take place is like we were saying before. If you give two people the same amount of money, and they're going to spend it different. And so somebody's going to come out on top because this person might be a saver. They might feel like I can go and buy something with this and maybe turn it into more money. But the other person's going to take the money and spend it. So basically what you have now is that businesses are going out of business, and so the market is consolidated. The people who have money, the Amazons, the larger companies, the Walmarts, all of these smaller companies are going out of business. And so everything is getting more and more confined and monopolized. And so you're going to be more willing to accept an idea like universal basic income because there won't be enough employment for everybody. And so it's just at its core is un-American, I guess, in the concept of America.
And that's the old concept of America. New concept, you don't know what it is.
That's what I say, the concept. Being a concept and being what's real is two different things. But like we say, it's just something we wanted to touch bases on and throw out there.
Yeah, are you excited about universal, giving your money to, what is it called?
Universal basic income.
Universal basic income. You see, I'm rejecting that idea.
Basically, it's a domestic welfare for everybody in the States. So they have some semblance of it. But in Alaska, it's basically everybody in Alaska gets a certain subsidy. They get a certain amount of money every month.
Well, that doesn't have anything to do with that's your income.
I know, but I'm just saying they get a certain amount of money.
That's like a kickback.
Whether
so being
they work
or
not.
Because it's hard for Alaska to keep citizens, they give their citizens a kickback at the end of the year for the oil and gas that they produce. And so that's like like a bonus.
Right.
But welfare ain't no bonus.
No, but it's similar. It's something you didn't have to work for, and they're giving you some money for it. So, I
think China and Russia. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think everybody want to pray and hope God can restore order here and get things back on track. Because that whole idea, that whole concept, only leads to you further getting into things you don't want to be in.
Yeah, that you being a subject in somebody's kingdom.
Right. Everybody likes to be the lord of their own household. You don't want the government or anybody else telling you stay home and we're gonna pay you. That's just not.
Yeah. What happens if they all of a sudden don't pay you?
Yeah. So you
like what's going on now? You second stimulus was supposed to be here months ago. It ain't came.
Right. So these are just some things to contemplate. So if you I don't think you have to accept it. It's just going to be out there. Most of the Americans who was offered the stimulus took it. I think some of the people still hadn't received it yet, and that was not because they didn't want it. I think there's just a backlog in the system.
Yeah, so that means they are able to control your actions if everybody is to receive this thing. And remember, we told you some people didn't receive it because they married somebody who wasn't a citizen. So then therefore, if you know you can't get your stimulus, if you marry somebody else that's not a citizen, then you're not gonna marry him. Or if they want you to whatever else they want you to do, you can't get your paycheck if you don't do it. Then that ain't. Oh no.
Well, it's just a lot of tough decisions coming up real soon, and so everybody needs to start getting educated, start finding out what's taking place. And what are some of these ideas being proposed?
But that's biblical. I control you and your money, and making you get stuff you don't want to have to get. Hint.
The key in life is to be self-reliant. So don't depend on the government. Don't expect them to have anything for you. So if you look at life like that, I think you'll go out and try to do things for you and your family, what's best for y'all.
Look to the Almighty, not to your government.
Yes, that's always a losing proposition now. So thank y'all again so much for tuning in. And like we always say, you're going to be blessed. Just find a good Lord, seek him out. He going to take care of you. He always taking care of us. We've made it this far. We're going to continue to make it. But keep your mind and your heart right. And we thank y'all again so much. But don't forget to subscribe. We highly appreciate it.
Subscribe and hit that bell.
Please. Good night.
Good night.